Have you noticed the recent price increase for Moonbreon? It's literally skyrocketing in value, and this time it seems that it's not just like some fleeting trend. Though before I jump into this Umbreon, I am gifting 2 near mint Japanese Pikachu pre-order promos to 2 different subscribers in today's video. Now this card was only available when you actually pre-ordered the Scarlet and Violet video games back in Japan in 2022. Now if I actually reply to your comment and you get a Moonbreon emoji, then well done, you've got one of these entering your collection. And of course, if it is your first time here, my name is Phil and I'm a marketing professional who now runs this Pokemon collecting and Pokemon investing YouTube channel. Please feel free to subscribe to be kept up to date with Pokemon TCG news. Now, while we're on the topic of this Umbreon VMAX alt, right? Why is this card in particular becoming a focal point yet again? We just saw it rise like crazy a few months ago, then it dipped down again, and now it's seemingly climbing again. But what makes this card so sought out? You know, collectors sometimes think the rise is because it's an evolution and then it's very rare to pull, or they just say the artwork is fantastic. And I mean, that all makes sense, though I feel there's something far deeper going on with this card. I literally can't put my finger on it, but there's something completely different about it. And I'm gonna take you through the price of this card in just a second, though part of me feels that this Umbreon represents more than just a typical chase card. It feels like it's a cultural shift rooted in the pandemic era of collecting. Like during 2021, when people turned to Pokemon for comfort and nostalgia during isolation, it almost feels as if this Umbreon emerged as like some sort of symbol of resilience and connection during a difficult time period that everyone shared collectively. You know, base set Charizard is synonymous with the inception of Pokemon trading cards, but this Umbreon almost feels as if it's the inception of the rebirth for collectors, right? Whenever I look at Moonbreon, it doesn't just feel like it's a Pokemon card. It almost feels like it's a relic of a unique time which captured a world of uncertainty at the time. It's really rooted in that time period. It almost feels like this is the card that put Pokemon cards back at the top of their game after a 20-year period. Every time that I look at this card and then I think that the price can't be sustained, it just proves me wrong every single time. This card is a perfect example of the unpredictable nature of Pokemon cards, right? I sometimes cannot comprehend where the crazy demand comes from. Like, to put things in perspective, right? Sony just announced the PS5 Pro, and this comes with all the new bells and whistles, right? It's got new AI upscaling technology, and like, it's pretty much the latest technology for console gaming, and it has an absurd pricing of $700 USD, which is like 40% more than a normal PS5. Now, yes, it's very expensive, though at least you're getting some sort of brand new cutting edge system, right? Though a raw Umbreon VMAX is worth more than a brand new PS5 Pro. Like when you really think about it, what provides you more value? A raw Pokemon single or a new cutting edge system which allows you to play 4K gaming at 60 frames per second and the whole lot? So yeah, I mean, when perspective is given, the pricing is actually out of the realms of common sense. Like, just so you can see what I mean, check out the pricing of this card. It's actually crazy. Umbreon VMAX on TCG Player. So I'm on the 3-month graph. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull this one into the year graph, okay? I'm now sitting on the year graph. Now you can see, I'm gonna pull this all the way. This is kind of its low when it was in October last year, right? It was sitting at 491 USD, which to me was still crazy expensive. Like, that's a $500 card for a raw copy. Yes, near mint, still $500. I personally thought that was a really, really fair price, right? And you can see what happened after last year. It kind of started climbing, and then earlier this year it spiked to $958, which was kind of the new high point in the market. And you know, it was pretty much approaching a $1,000 card, right? Then you can see it slowly tapered off, and then it kind of hit a low of around 840. I'm gonna just pull that into the 3-month graph, and you can just see around mid-September started climbing, and right now it's sitting at 954 USD for a raw copy. I'm gonna pull that into the month graph, and you can see that is climbing quite high. In fact, that looks like just in pretty much in 15 days, it's climbed over $100, which looks like, yeah, 856, yeah, 958. There you go. It's climbed $102 just in the last 15 days. Pretty significant price increase, right? Does make you wonder, what is pushing this card up again? And like I said at the start of the video, I do feel that this card is a relic of time. I feel like it is so connected to the kind of rebirth of Pokemon collecting. I really feel it is so similar to base set Charizard in a lot of ways, but a completely different version. It's like a new kind of package of how Pokemon collecting has been rebirthed, and kind of makes me wonder, you know, there's a lot of expensive cards in the market, but nothing like this Umbreon. So you can see right now, it's pretty much hit a new high, which is 958. I'm gonna just go in that, and then you can see the previous high was 958. Oh, sorry, it's 958.68, and the previous high was 958.27. So yeah, it's actually at its new high by whatever it is, 30 cents. Can it keep going? Where is it gonna level out? You know, it is kind of wild to see this. And it's more wild because when you look at the pop reports, right? So I'm on PSA right now. Umbreon VMAX, right? In PSA 10 has 13,260 copies in PSA 10. What an enormous amount of copies. That is a lot of copies, man. You might say, oh wait, 13,000 copies, that's not so much. There's so many collectors out in the world. It's true, but in terms of, it has to be relative to collecting terms. And in terms of collecting, 13,000 copies in PSA 10 is a lot when you compare it to Pokemon collecting and, you know, just how many pop reports there are in general. And you can actually even see it's got 3,111 in PSA 9. This card actually grades very well. It's actually very likely if you pull this card raw, you've actually got the highest chance for it to get a PSA 10, which is not always the case, right? Sometimes cards are very more likely to get PSA 9s than they are 10s. This card has a very high percentage to get a PSA 10, which is great because Evolving Skies did have good quality control, which is actually quite remarkable given the fact of how much Evolving Skies product came in the market during that time. So the fact that it grades well is really good. I'm really interested to see where Umbreon VMAX will level out because correct, it might keep rising, but can it last for, you know, 5 years, 10 years? Is it going to become a base set Charizard? You know, base set Charizard, like off the top of my head, I'll get the figures, but I'm pretty sure base set Charizard in PSA 10 has under 200 copies in PSA 10. So yes, it's selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but then again, there's only, you know, under 200 copies in the wild. This card has 13,000 copies. You know, I highly doubt it can go anywhere near those prices in the future, but you know, given the way it's performing, it's getting really interesting. Moving forward, right, I want to just go through some other cards and moving on the Latias and Latios, you know, card from Team Up. I'm on the near mint copy in a year and you can see last year it was selling for 722 USD and right now it's selling at 873 USD. You could even argue that this card from Team Up is probably rarer than Umbreon in a lot of ways, given the fact that Evolving Skies would have been printed far more than Team Up because of the newfound demand in Pokemon cards, right? So, you know, this card is amazing as well. It's a real big chase card. It's also much older than Umbreon, and the fact that it's selling for 873, while Umbreon is selling for 956 when there's so much more copies in the wild. I get it, man. Like, Umbreon's probably far more popular than Latios and Latias, but still, it really makes you wonder, wow, these are some really high prices. Given the fact that this card released before the new paradigm shift, it is pretty crazy, right? Moving forward as well, you can see the current generation. So Greninja is the top chase card for the Scarlet and Violet era. You can see here, I'm just on the 6 months. This one's kind of sitting at 274, which, you know, most collectors, this is the most expensive card in Scarlet and Violet at the moment. Most collectors are saying, wow, that's so expensive. But the Umbreon is what? Like, you know, nearly, you know, 3.5 times more than that. So it is a very high price card. And the crazy thing is, it also moves, man. If you put an Umbreon VMAX near mint, you take good photos and you list it on an eBay auction, that thing's gonna sell for that price. You cannot get discounts on that Umbreon VMAX. Like, that's the crazy thing as well. It's not like one of those cards that, oh, I just sniped this for a little bit lower. Oh, I got a good deal on it. You're not getting good deals on Umbreon VMAX. You are actually having to pay what it's worth. With a lot of cards, man, it's so common. You can find the right moments on eBay. You can have notifications set up on your eBay app. You can kind of get them at good rates. The Umbreon VMAX is the outlier. It is very rare to say, hey, I got this for a good price. You're usually paying the market price. It truly seems that this card is unstoppable in a lot of ways. Like when this card was rising last year, because I can't go on TCG Player all the way back to 2023. But if you remember last year, 2023, this card was just climbing pretty much with no end in sight. It was like every week it was just going up. And then finally it started tapering off when the alt art kind of dip happened later in the year. And the same thing with this year. It also kind of went from 500, nearly doubled this year as well. Moving on, you can see the Giratina V, and same thing with this one. This one's kind of tapering off. So it's kind of weird because they do usually work in waves. So I'm kind of feeling if this Umbreon starts climbing, will the Giratina V start climbing? Will the Gengar VMAX start climbing? Will the Sylveon VMAX start climbing? It's really interesting time period right now. Check this one out as well. You can see this one climbed to a maximum of 480 USD, and now it's kind of going down, and this one's now selling for 330. That looks like even more than 100, you know, close to $150 drop. I really want to see where this Giratina V is going to go. Is it going to climb in value? Super unique time for this Giratina V. Moving on to the Gengar VMAX as well, you can see this one is at a really strong level of a stabilization in the market. This is going to be interesting because I think the Gengar VMAX can go either way now. Is it going to climb past its previous high of 409. Right now it's sitting at 311. We're going to pull that in that 1 month graph and you can see it's kind of sitting quite stable. In the last 3 months, it's been, 301 to 311 USD. Okay, so the price of these cards is getting pretty crazy, right? However, can these prices maintain? I usually am in the camp where I'm pretty doubtful because I sometimes don't seem to think that they can maintain. But honestly, as Pokemon collecting is growing, it seems more players are in the game and more players just want these cards. Though with all that said, it kind of makes you wonder with how many new people in the hobby are just throwing their money down on these singles and not thinking about it too much. Well, if you do want to know what the 4 worst Pokemon investments are, I actually cover that in this video here. Within this video, I look over the 4 worst Pokemon investments and I do a deep dive into that topic. If you're interested in that video, I recommend you click that video that's appearing on screen and we'll talk more about it there.